Well, Pakistan defeated New Zealand in a rain-affected World Cup match, securing a 21-run win through the Duckworth-Lewis method. Fakhar Zaman's outstanding unbeaten 126 and Babar Azam's finally 66 not out led Pakistan's charge. The New Zealand had posted 4-0-1 for 6 in their innings. Pakistan was chasing 342 runs in 41 overs when rain disrupted the play. With this win, Pakistan moves to the 5th position on the points table. Staying in the semi-final race, in another match, England, the defending champion, was knocked out of the World Cup, losing to Australia by 33 runs. England's 6th loss in 7 matches ended in their semi-final hopes. Well, today, India faces South Africa in their 8th World Cup match at Kolkata's Eden Garden. India is aiming for their 8th consecutive win in this tournament, having not lost a match as yet. South Africa, with a strong performance and 6 wins out of 7 matches, poses a tough challenge for India. Currently tops the point table, while South Africa is in the 2nd place. Well, joining me are 2 important guests right now. Tasmin Gradja, the acclaimed Zimbabwean women's cricketer who's played for 15 years and still going strong. Again, we have a new international cricket commentator from South Africa, Philesande Sixaba, South African cricket commentator. Philesande, welcome to the show right early in the morning. What do you think of the overall match that happened yesterday before we jump into the India-South Africa match?
Morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I think it was really 2 good games that we saw yesterday.
Yes.
Particularly from a Pakistan point of view. Chasing 401 was always going to be a daunting task. I thought Fakhar Zaman came out and really does what he does best, and that's hit sixes for Pakistan, and to get to 200 for 1 inside 20 overs was just amazing, and it's given them a chance now to be able to secure the semi-final spot. So really, really good game. England is a little bit disappointing this year in terms of defending that title. They've had a lot of selection issues, I think, and I think a lot of what has gone wrong for them is because of those selection issues, bringing Ben Stokes back from retirement, not selecting Harry Brook in some of the most crucial matches. It's just given them so much headaches at this Cricket World Cup, and it looks like it's just one of those competitions where they want to put behind them and move forward.
Well, I'm just going to quote you something what Moeen Ali said to Ian Morgan and Michael Atherton last night. This I'm quoting again from Sky Cricket, and it says, "It's an end of an era, especially when you walk into the next World Cup. You'll barely have 2 or 3 people retained in that particular format of the game." Would you agree to that?
Yeah, definitely. It's all eras have to come to an end. I mean, if you look at this group of England players, they've been together for about 6, 7, 8 years now, and I think it's time for them to move on. Moeen Ali probably won't make to the next World Cup. So won't Josh Buttler, so won't Ben Stokes. So there's a lot of these guys that are going to move on.
Yes.
And it's a sad way to move on to have performed like this in a title defense.
Absolutely. But tell me, just take a step back. If you're Kane Williamson, you play the Lord's final, you miss out from the barest of the margin, as Ian Smith calls it. Yesterday, after scoring 400 runs, you lose out. What would he be what would he be thinking, and what would be going inside his mind? Would he be stabbed 1,000 times inside his heart?
Cricket is a funny game, isn't it? One side scores 400, the other scores 200, but the one that scores 200 wins the game. It's so bizarre, but yeah, spare a thought for Kane Williamson. He's also had a torrid run with injuries, a hectic knee injury for the Gujarat Titans in the IPL earlier this year, having to come back from that, and then breaking a thumb in this World Cup and having to sit out for a majority of this World Cup. It just hasn't gone well for Kane Williamson particularly, but it looks like it's not going well for New Zealand, particularly in this Cricket World Cup so far. But they're still a quality side. They've although they've got plenty of injuries around that squad, they can still bounce back, make the semis, and really push on to try and make a final as well. So there's still lots to play for them, but for Kane Williamson also particularly.
Well, Lasande, if you remember the 1992 World Cup, Pakistan was more or less in a similar kind of a situation where they lost few matches and won even lesser, and then they go on to the semi-final only thanks to some rain-affected match, and that to South Africa. Does it still hurt? And do you think South Africa has to get the ghost of that 1992 away when they play in India today?
You're making me go back, way back, right? But yeah, those are hurtful memories, but it's definitely something that the South Africans try and not think about.
Yes.
It's a fresh start, you know. It's a fresh start for this group of players. It's an experienced group of players. What an opportunity to play against India in India at Eden Gardens in Kolkata, probably one of the best grounds historically in the game. And to play a World Cup match against India there is huge. I think for South Africans, and especially for this group of players, it's something that they really look forward to. They get themselves up for. We've had a really good run in this World Cup, but I think this is going to be the game that a lot of South Africans are going to be waking up early for and sitting in front of their TVs and watching the whole 100 overs. So it's going to be very, very, very big.
Is it a dress rehearsal of the final? And considering that South Africa has had the better of India since 92, they beat us in 92, 99, then again in 2011, and since then in 2015 and 2019, India has had glorious moments. Do you think India will continue, or South Africa will go up, considering that the way that they're playing, they're almost unstoppable?
Well, as far as the dress rehearsal for the final, I'm not sure. You know, I don't think we want to think that far ahead. I mean, South Africa's record in playoff matches in the Cricket World Cup isn't great, so we don't want to think too far ahead. But this match is of utmost importance. And I think when you go back and you rightly mentioned that, you know, South Africa's head-to-head record against India in Cricket World Cups is good, barring the last two editions of them, 2015 and of course 2019. But when you look at that, it really spells the growth of Indian cricket over the last sort of decade and a half. How the IPL has really just unearthed so many stars and really grown Indian cricket and to be able to suit all conditions. I mean, if you look at Shami Bai and how he's bowling, you know, you probably wouldn't have had that 10, 20 years ago, a seamer of that quality running in, knocking over sides in Indian conditions like that. So it shows the growth of Indian cricket, but I think this is a huge match. It's a top of the table clash. It's India with a really great bowling lineup against South Africa, who's got a fantastic top six. So it's going to be a huge encounter, and hopefully South Africa comes up on top.
Hopefully. Let's see what the stats talk about. And to talk more about it, we've got Tasneem Granger, the lady herself, who's kept a close eye since the day one of this World Cup. Tasneem, what do we have today?
So today, definitely looking good for us out here. You know, it's one of those well-awaited matches, I think, so far of the tournament. You have the two table toppers playing against each other today.
Yes.
And just a few stats for you about the ground. You know, I want to highlight a key factor for you that this is the ground Virat Kohli did debut on 14 years ago, and he did score his first 100 there as well.
Wow.
So a bit of a sentimental moment for him as well, being able to come back and play on this ground as well.
Well, Shami plays from that particular place too.
Yes, definitely. You know, and, you know, just to talk about Mohammad Shami himself, you know, you must understand he's gone from the guy that was not considered in the starting 11 to being the guy that's taken 2 5-wicket hauls so far and 4 that's found himself in the top 10 bowlers of this current World Cup right now. He's sitting on 14 wickets at the moment, and he's just been brilliant for me, you know, Shami. Like, no one actually considered him to be a willing threat. And I did mention this on our watch-along commentary as well, that I believe that Shami, you know, nothing happens by chance. It might have just been fate and his stars aligned and he got an opportunity to be able to play. now he becomes that guy in the squad that it's hard to replace him. It's hard to sit him out as well.
Well, absolutely. That was the Indian stats for you. We'll have a detailed discussion in a while, but just take us through the South African part as well.
So definitely, right now for South Africa, you need to consider the fact that they have the tournament leading run scorer right now in Quinton de Kock as well. He's sitting first right now on the logs. He's got 545 runs. But close behind him, you know, you have the likes of Virat Kohli sitting in third with 442 runs. Again, if you switch over to the bowlers and you take a look, you have Adam Zampa after last night just making a leap back into the first place. And then close, not far behind him, you have Marco Jansen for South Africa that's up there as well. Mohammad Shami slipping in, Bumrah slipping in as well. And it just shows you that a lot of class players today are on display in the two matches today against each other.
Well, that's an interesting factor that we've got to put together. But we also have something very interesting here. The table standing and where India stands between South Africa. Well, let's look at where do we stand in head-to-head. Well, we've got played 90 matches against South Africa. India has won 37. 50 goes to South Africa. The 3 were no results. So I've got a question to our friend from South Africa, Philisande. How do you see this current South Africa team when it comes to apple if you do the comparison with the Indian team? How do you look at it?
Very close, you know. I mean, when you look at the top 6, there's nothing really separating South Africa's top 6 to India's top 6. And that's the beauty of this match, is that, you know, the margins have gone so much smaller in terms of the comparison of these two sides. We've got Shami Bai, who can pick up wickets in the power play. We've got Marco Jansen, who can pick up wickets in the power play for both sides. You've got guys that have scored hundreds. Quinton de Kock sitting up top there. Virat is really done well in this World Cup. So is Rohit Bhai. So there's a lot of real good stars to watch out for in this match on either side. And I think the gap has gone so much smaller between these two sides in terms of the experience that they have, but also the talent and the quality that they have in both sides.
Well, absolutely. That's an interesting factor. Right now, let's look at the stats that we have. Next move, we'll move on to the next slide. Let's look at what we have on the board right now. Well, 90 matches between head-to-head, playing between them. I think they get to know a sense of where we stand. Again, as we spoke, 99, 92 and 2011, India lost the match against South Africa. But now, India is a different animal altogether. It's like a dragon which is just going forward and there are no predators for it. Next on, what we have here is an interesting part, Tasmin, the 10 over, 40 over and 50 over thing that we look at. Let's go on to the next slide and let's look at what we have here. Here, Mr. Virat Kohli, he is the run machine. He's been playing well. In fact, this conversation will be dominated today by Virat Kohli's prowess, because he's not only one of the greatest to have donned the cricketing gear, but also he scored the number of runs here, especially in the World Cup, and also the number of records that he's broken as we go. Here, when we look at the Indian skipper with most number of hundreds is 21. So that talks about not only handling the pressure while, you know, leading the charge, but also scoring run. So when we go on to the next slide, we'll see how things shape up when it comes to the other part. Next, please. Again, we still have Virat Kohli leading this part against. You want to take us through this, Tasmin?
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, this is, again, the teams that he's dominated as well over the couple of years as well. He's got 10 runs against Sri Lanka. He's got 9 against West Indies. He's got another 8 against Australia. And, you know, you find his name appearing 3 times over. That tells you that he's been comfortable. It's not just this year alone, in the past 12 months that he's been doing well.
And not
enough.
just 1 or 2 countries or Sena or the ICC associate members. He's scored against the top countries in the top format of the game. Let's go on to the next slide and look at what we have next. Makes it very interesting. Again, these are the 2 players who are in the top 5 of the bowling and the batting department. Just take us through how they've fared thus far.
So these stats are just for this current ongoing World Cup happening right now. Virat Kohli's played 7 innings and he scored a mass of 442 runs. He's got 100 and 450s, again showing to you that he's been very consistent. I'm not too concerned about the fact that his strike rate is 89 for 0.47
Yes.
because he's come in and he's played a big stabilizing innings time and time again when they've lost Rohit earlier on.
This is very important because that shows the kind of class that he has and the kind of prowess that he has and the accumulator. Not the aggressor road, but the accumulator that we've often been talking about. Also, he stands at 4 or 5 in the top.
He's currently 4th.
He's currently at number 4, Virat Kohli. Let's move on to India's pacer right now. We have Jasprit Bumrah. Again, Tasmin, just take us through his number of wickets, figures and the economy rate.
Yeah, so I believe he's probably one of my top picks for the most economical opening bowler this far in the tournament. As well as not to mention the fact that he's one of those guys that has not been entirely mauled in the death overs, especially with what's been going on in this World Cup right now. He's played 7 innings for India right now this far. He's got 15 wickets. He's currently sitting at number 5 on the top bowlers list as well. And the thing for me is having an economy, I keep saying, for a seam bowler, it's an accomplishment to be anywhere near 6 or below. But he's sitting at 3.12 for me. That's Jasprit Bumrah.
He's amazing when it comes to the opening spell. Now, I've got a quick question, a 30-second question to Philisande. When you have Virat Kohli taking the Player of the Match awards 11 times, tied up with Chris Gayle, and his name keeps on popping up again and again, what do you think of it, Philisande?
Able to affect games in that nature. So many big games in Cricket World Cup history. It speaks volumes about his ability, his talent, his experience now. And I mean, if you have 48 one-day international hundreds and plenty in the Cricket World Cup as well, it speaks volumes about the kind of batter that he is and what he's developed to become. So one of the best players to ever play this format particularly, but hopefully he doesn't come off against South Africa today.
Well, absolutely. He hopes that it doesn't come across against South Africa. When we look at the team standing and the 10 overs bowling between the two teams and the batting, that's where you look at the things, and that's when you dissect. If you change it to the next one, I'm sure that's the slide that we were talking about. Again, most number of centuries. Again, Virat said his name appears invariably. It's like an auto-signature kind of a thing for the ODIs. Next, please.
Definitely. So I'm just going to start you off on that slide as well of what it's been shaping up to look like in the first 1 to 10 overs while our team gets it up here on the big screen. So something you must realize is this far that India has scored a entire total of 403 runs at the current rate of 6. So far, this is them in the first 10 overs. So not far behind you, South Africa is currently going at 5 runs and over in the first 10 overs right now. India again has a whopping average of 50.38 right now and just 272 dots. South Africa right now has an entire slide. South Africa right now has 37, the average just 37. We do know that Themba Bavuma has not entirely been getting off to great starts so far in this World Cup.
Let's look at the bowling part, how India quickly looks at bowling the first 10 overs and then the 10 overs. Because mind you, this becomes increasingly important because when they go on to the last 10 overs, they suddenly explode. Let's look at the bowling quickly and then we move on to the next slide.
So in the first 10 overs, you can see both teams right now, the runs conceded for India, 287. That will tell you that they're definitely bowling more dots in the first 10 overs than South Africa, who have conceded 362. But South Africa slightly ahead in the fact that they do capitalize
on
up front.
taking the wickets.
They take more wickets, 3 more wickets than India at this current stage.
So what it tells you is that the first 10 overs, India needs to negotiate with the bowling and not let go of the wicket and also score briskly. The second part.
I'm just going to go, the middle overs, they're both there, you know what I mean? Like, they have 33, that is South Africa right now. India have 33, South Africa have 39 as well. But the runs conceded again, that will tell you that India is actually still more economical than South Africa in this middle period.
I think the difference lies in the batting part. If we show the last one, The last slide, and I'll quickly wrap up after showing that. You know, the sudden explosion not happens at the front, it happens at the back, and that's where things change. Can I request the team to go on to the next one?
So definitely, if you're looking at the way they go by batting phases, you know, India currently, they're scoring about 209 runs in the last 10 overs. This is them in the past.
Yes.
But South Africa, 636 runs in the last 10 overs. I think this is chalked down to the fact that they have a really deep middle order that's been tested and stepped up to the plate, as opposed to India.
I mean, it's mind-blowing. You can't find that kind of figure anywhere. So last 10 overs, South Africa scores at the average of what?
10.99.
10 runs an over, almost 11, as compared to India somewhere around
7.2.
Now that's where the difference is, because they've got the batting down to the end, and they've got some explosive batters who don't care about who don't respect the number of bowlers, the kind of prowess that they have, or the test rankings or the ODI rankings of the bowler. Well, that's all we had time for. I thank my guest who joined us from South Africa. I thank Tasmin Granger for putting this entire show together and getting down to the details and deconstructing the entire stats for us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.